Chapter 7 is about the implementation plan. 7.1 Implementation Needs. 7.1.1 Actions and Tasks. Based on the PBSAP, it can be said that the dominant implementation tasks include the following: A. Policy formulation, national policy, proposed legislation, developing guidelines. Letter B. Sectoral planning, area planning, and reconciling the same with other competing sectors. Letter C. Mainstreaming plans in the bigger socioeconomic development plans. Letter D. Law enforcement and conflict resolution. Letter E. Recognition of and support to management and utilization rights and intellectual property rights of stakeholders. Letter F. Provision of support services under limited resources, extension, research, and documentation. Letter G. Human resources and institutional capacity building, SEPA, and knowledge management. And letter H. Constituency building among non-state actors, NGO networks, business networks. 7.1.2 Phasing. The tasks are divided into short-term 2015 to 2016, medium-term 2017 to 2020, and long-term 2021 to 2028. Short-term tasks are important for building the operational vision, organization, operational plans, and capacity of actors to implement tasks. They would consist of immediately doable tasks that can be completed in the first 2 years that can be supported by earmarks or maturing pipeline projects. Some tasks start in year 1 and require more than 3 years or more than 5 years to complete. They are considered medium and long-term tasks. 7.1.3 Actors. There are several actors involved from the point of view of tasks under PBSAP. Each set of actors has its own set of capacity building needs. This slide shows us the different actors. National agencies, example DNR, DA, NCIP, DOST, DOH, DOT, DPWH, DepEd, CHED, National Commission on Culture and Arts, Philippine Information Agency, DILG, NEDA, DBM, COA, Civil Service Commission, Human Resource System of Line Agencies, and local government of provinces, municipalities, and cities. For the interagency and inter-LGU bodies, we have PAMBs, Baywide Councils. And we have the last peer support networks. We have leagues of LGUs, League of Civil Servants, NGO networks, business chambers. 7.1.4 Implementation Capacity. The strength and weakness of the above actors is largely public knowledge. Some of the more well-known strengths and weaknesses are: for the national agencies, the strengths, sectoral planning, project planning. Weaknesses, interagency coordination, ODA absorption capacity, knowledge management. Under local government, the strength can lead local multi-sectoral action, many good practices nationally recognized. For the weaknesses, ad hoc pet projects, hostage to leadership changes. For the interagency bodies, inter-LGU bodies, the strength, many are ecosystems based. Weaknesses, usually project driven, managing leadership changes, quality of secretariat support. And for the peer support networks, LGU leagues, CSO networks, business associations, strengths, sharing of good practices. For the weaknesses, organizational problems, knowledge management, and volunteer fatigue. A national capacity self-assessment for CBD implementation in 2005 indicated overall sufficient capacity for policy formulation and planning, but lacking to barely sufficient in financing and obtaining public support. Human capacity is lacking in focal government offices and barely sufficient to sufficient among non-government, academe, and business. Capacity building activities have been largely project-based, depending on donor-driven opportunities. There are noticeable anecdotal achievements at the project level, but due to a lack of monitoring, it is difficult to make a strategic assessment of cumulative gains. Capacity building. 7.1.5 Funding. The PBSAP will be supported by a mix of sources coming from the national government, local government, voluntary contributions from non-state actors, civil society and business sectors, and international support. 7.2 Learnings from earlier PBSAP implementation. 7.2.1 Key gaps in previous work. The first NBSAP was approved in 1997 by Presidential Memorandum Order 289 and was updated by Philippine Biodiversity Conservation Priorities (PBCP) in 2002 that provided strong spatial reference to the NBSAP. The need to mainstream the NBSAP and the PBCP strategies is reiterated almost 10 years after in November 2006 through EU 758 establishing a national policy for biodiversity. The mainstreaming instructions appeared more as a rider to new coastal program that was being launched. There are no known implementation actions of this EO. The PCSD Subcommittee for Biodiversity currently serves as de facto steering committee of the PBCP. The government encountered the following key implementation issues in the earlier PBSAP. A. Both plans did not have clear institutional arrangements, monitoring and evaluation system, or a systematic resource mobilization strategy. The de facto secretariat role of DMB was severely hampered by limited staff resources. B. Strategies were generally reflected in DENR programs but hardly in other sectoral plans beyond the environment sector. There was a general lack of mechanisms to integrate targets in agency-level planning. C. Most of the limited interventions were highly project-based and the incorporation of their accomplishments and learnings in the strategic planning process has been minimal. Lack of a communication and knowledge management strategy to support the continuing need for awareness and commitment building. Due to the limited attention and support to the CHM, the latter was marginalized. E. Human resources capacity has been largely project-based and left largely untracked. Letter F. Monitoring every 2 years is largely done for reportorial obligation to CBD. It has not been sufficiently used to support proactive internal assessment and follow-on planning. 7.2.2 Recommended features. Based on a review of capacities and lessons from earlier PBSAP implementation, it is clear that the coordination and management process and structures of the PBSAP needs to possess the following minimum features. Letter A. It is supported by an EO that clearly establishes roles and functions and startup funding. Implementation at the agency level needs to be supported by tripartite MOA among the National Program Committee, the DNR, and the agency concerned. Letter B. A strong program secretariat is crucial. To complement limited government resources for secretariat work, volunteer resources must be mobilized and managed effectively. Letter C. Biodiversity is a complex subject matter and will be implemented by various stakeholders who have varying levels of understanding of and commitment to biodiversity conservation. To compete for the attention of decision makers, continuing education and communication strategies need to be proactively embedded in the PBSAP decision-making process. Letter D. The traditional roles of coordination and management are no longer sufficient. It must also be concerned with developing and enabling champions who can advocate biodiversity conservation in decision-making, planning, programming, and budgeting. Letter E. To support the mainstreaming process, the PBSAP must be embedded in the planning and budgeting process of participating agencies. Letter F. To better manage conflict and promote synergy, operational plans need to be regularly vetted with multi-sectoral bodies at national, PCSD, regional RDCs, and local levels, local development councils, ecosystem-based councils. Letter G. The resources of LGUs in the social capital of civil society organizations and businesses need to be tapped more effectively. Peer support networks, LGU leagues, government networks, and business associations provide the platform to reach out to these sectors. In letter H, the management system must take advantage of the evolving mechanisms and tools of open government reforms being instituted in order to institutionalize the participation of non-state actors and exact accountability from implementing agencies.